One of the most subtle but revealing signs of envy in others is the backhanded compliment. At first glance, it may seem like the person is acknowledging your strengths or achievements, but listen carefully and you'll find a hidden jab wrapped in a smile. A backhanded compliment often sounds like praise, but it carries an undercurrent of sarcasm, jealousy, or passive aggression. For example, someone might say, "Wow, you're actually pretty smart for someone who didn't go to college," or "You look great in that dress." It really hides your flaws well. These statements are not innocent or playful. They are meant to diminish your value while pretending to uplift you. People who feel threatened by your progress may use this tactic to disguise their insecurity. Envy makes them uncomfortable with your success, but direct negativity would expose them. So instead, they weaponize words under the guise of encouragement. It's a way of asserting superiority or reducing your accomplishments without looking openly hostile. This behavior can often catch you off guard because it doesn't always sound overtly malicious. That's why it's important to pay attention not just to the words, but to the tone, timing, and context. Was the comment necessary? Did it follow good news you shared? Does it leave you feeling confused or second guessing yourself afterward? If backhanded compliments become a pattern, it's a red flag, or it usually indicates that the person sees your light but can't celebrate it without dimming it first. And in many cases, it's not just envy. It's a form of subtle manipulation intended to chip away at your confidence over time. By recognizing this behavior early, you can set boundaries, protect your self-worth, and avoid becoming entangled in someone else's unresolved jealousy. While genuine praise is a sign of encouragement and support, excessive or insincere flattery often signals something very different: falsehood. When someone showers you with compliments that feel over the top, exaggerated, or oddly timed, you should pause and consider their true intent. False individuals often use flattery as a tool of manipulation rather than a genuine expression of admiration. They may tell you what you want to hear, not because they mean it, but because they want something from you, or they're trying to cover up their envy or deceit. Their compliments may sound like, "You're the most amazing person I've ever met," or "Everything you touch turns to gold." While these might seem flattering at first, they often lack specificity or sincerity. You'll notice that this type of flattery doesn't come with real engagement. They praise your success, but never ask how you achieved it. They admire your talents, but show no interest in your process. Substance is missing. Their words are sugary, but they dissolve quickly under scrutiny. In some cases, excessive flattery is used to lower your guard. People who aren't authentic may try to win your trust by boosting your ego. They inflate your sense of importance, hoping you'll overlook their inconsistencies or questionable behavior. They want to create a false sense of closeness fast. Once they feel they've gained your trust, they may begin to exploit it, gossip behind your back, or shift their tone when you're not in the room. Another thing to look for is inconsistency. Someone who overflattered you yesterday might ignore you today, or even criticize you the moment you're not in their favor. This hot and cold behavior is often a sign that the admiration was never real. It was a means to an end, not a reflection of true respect or connection. Genuine praise builds over time and is rooted in understanding and mutual regard. Flattery without substance, however, is a fog, thick with empty words but offering no clarity or depth. While they may seem mildly supportive, you might notice a sense of hidden satisfaction or relief. That's because your setbacks reaffirm their belief that they're still ahead or that you're not untouchable. Silent competitors thrive on the idea of being the one who's doing just a little bit better, even if they never say it aloud. The danger of this type of behavior is that it can lead to a one-sided relationship where you're being used as a benchmark. You may begin to feel pressure not just from your own goals, but from the unspoken contest you never signed up for. Over time, it becomes exhausting. You'll find that no matter what you do, there's always a subtle tension, an unspoken race to stay ahead or prove something. In some cases, the person might even subtly sabotage or withhold support just to gain an edge. They may avoid sharing opportunities with you or quietly root for your plans to fail just so they can remain on top. Healthy relationships thrive on mutual celebration, not quiet competition. Someone's drive is motivated more by keeping up with you than building their own path. Envy is often at the root. Silent competition may be polite on the surface, but underneath, it's fueled by a resistance to see you win without feeling like they've lost. Our words can be carefully chosen to disguise envy. The body often tells a different story. One of the most revealing signs that someone is envious or harboring resentment is how they physically react to your achievements, especially when they think no one is watching too closely. People who struggle with envy may say the derided things. I'm so happy for you. That's amazing. But their body language often tells the truth. You might notice a forced smile that doesn't quite reach their eyes, a sudden stiffening of posture, crossed arms, or averted gaze when you're sharing good news. In group settings, they might shift uncomfortably, look at their phone, or go quiet when the attention is on your success. These cues aren't accidental. They stem from an internal conflict between what they want to portray and what they actually feel. Envy is a deeply emotional response, and when someone is struggling with it, it can be hard for them to celebrate others without showing some form of resistance. Even if they manage to say congratulatory words, their body might betray clenched teeth, a sigh, a dismissive headshake, or lack of enthusiasm in tone. These reactions, though subtle, can reveal far more than their compliments do. You may also observe that they disengage when you're discussing your progress or shift the topic quickly to something unrelated, or worse, to themselves. For example, you might be explaining an exciting breakthrough in your business and they'll abruptly steer the conversation to a minor inconvenience in their life, subtly implying that your moment is not worth lingering on. Nonverbal communication is powerful because it bypasses logic and conscious control. A person can plan their words, but they can't always control their energy or involuntary responses. The fleeting look of irritation, the delay in clapping, the absence of eye contact, these are all indicators that your success makes them uncomfortable, even if they won't say it out loud. Sometimes they might even physically remove themselves from the space. They might make an excuse to leave early or suddenly remember an urgent errand. These behaviors can leave you confused, especially when their words and actions don't match. But once you learn to trust your observation skills and emotional intuition, you'll begin to notice when someone's presence lacks sincerity. People who genuinely care about you will celebrate you fully, with words, with warmth, and with joyful body language. They'll be animated, engaged, and present. But those who envy you will often show the cracks in their emotional armor through subtle discomfort, through posture, tone, eye movement, or a lack of physical engagement when your light shines the brightest. One of the most deceptive ways envy and falsehood reveal themselves is through disguised gossip. Unlike obvious backstabbing or malicious rumors, this type of gossip often comes cloaked in concern, advice, or subtle storytelling. It's designed to sound helpful or harmless on the surface, but at its core, it undermines your reputation, questions your character, or sows doubt in the minds of others. People who envy you but can't confront their feelings openly may resort to whispering criticisms about you when you're not present. They might say things like, I really admire her, but don't you think she's changed a lot since her promotion? Or, I'm happy for him, but sometimes he comes off a little arrogant. Don't you think? These aren't innocent comments. They're calculated. Their purpose is to chip away at how others perceive you bit by bit without appearing directly hostile. What makes disguised gossip so harmful is that it's not always easy to trace. It's often spread under the guise of sharing insight, relaying concerns, or protecting someone's interests. The speaker might act as if they're looking out for you or for the person they're gossiping to. This gives their words an air of credibility, even though their intent is rooted in envy or insecurity. You'll also notice that people who engage in this behavior rarely confront you directly. Instead, they operate in shadows. They might smile to your face, offer congratulations, or show public support, while privately feeding others half-truths, exaggerations, or misleading narratives that paint you in a less favorable light. They may also position themselves as the voice of reason in conversations where your name comes up. She's talented, but she needs to be more humble. Or, he's doing well, but we'll see how long it lasts. These kinds of statements are not about balance or fairness. They're subtle attempts to poison admiration with doubt. And the people who hear this gossip may not even realize they're being influenced. That's the dangerous part. Because the gossip is framed as subtle opinion or casual observation, it doesn't register as direct harm. but it is harm. It corrodes trust, builds quiet skepticism, and can isolate you socially or professionally over time. Another hallmark of disguised gossip is inconsistency. The person may praise you in one group but criticize you in another. They adjust their tone and message depending on their audience. This chameleon-like behavior is a strong indicator of falsehood, of someone who is not grounded in honesty or loyalty, but in image management and covert competition. Those who gossip under the mask of concern are often the same ones who struggle the most with their own self-worth. They use gossip as a way to level the playing field, not by lifting themselves up, but by pulling others down, quietly, consistently, and without direct confrontation. One of the most confusing yet revealing traits of a person driven by envy or falsehood is inconsistency. Their actions, words, and attitudes towards you change depending on who is watching what you accomplished recently or how visible your success has become. You might feel like you're dealing with two different people, the one who supports you in private and the one who subtly distances themselves or even discredits you in public. Inconsistent behavior is a key sign that someone's intentions toward you are not entirely honest. When someone is genuine, their behavior remains relatively steady. They may have good and bad days, of course, but their respect, loyalty, and demeanor stay consistent. A false or envious person, however, shifts depending on what serves them best in the moment. In private, they may act warm, interested, and affirming. They might share personal stories, offer encouragement, or make you feel like you're close. But in public, especially around people they want to impress or compete with, they might downplay their connection to you, act indifferent, or even mock you subtly. This behavior isn't random, it's strategic. It's strategic. They want to benefit from your presence when it's convenient, but distance themselves when your light threatens to outshine theirs. You might also notice that their tone changes depending on your current position or perceived value. When you're struggling, they may seem supportive, but if you start to succeed, they pull back, grow distant, or even seem annoyed. They may suddenly become critical, unavailable, or disinterested in your conversation. Their enthusiasm fades, and you're left wondering what changed, especially if you haven't done anything wrong. This inconsistency creates emotional confusion. You begin to question whether the support you once felt was ever real. You may feel off balance, walking on eggshells, never quite sure which version of them will show up. That's the effect of a false connection. Keeps you unsure so that your emotional defenses remain lowered while their envy or hidden motives go unchecked. Another form of this inconsistent behavior is performative support. In public, they may cheer you on, post supportive comments on social media, or offer congratulations when everyone else is watching. But when the spotlight fades, so does their interest. They don't show up when it really matters. They don't follow through on promises. Their support is more about how they look rather than what you need. These behavioral swings are a symptom of someone who is not operating from a place of integrity. It's not that they don't know how to be kind or supportive. It's that they selectively choose when to be based on how your success fits into their own narrative or comfort level. When a person is authentic, their kindness isn't seasonal or situational. It doesn't shift based on applause or envy. But when someone's heart is shadowed by falsehood or jealousy, consistency becomes impossible to maintain because they are constantly at war with their own conflicting desires to be close to you yet to see you fall. When someone is envious or harboring false intentions toward you, one of the most telling behaviors they display is a persistent focus on your flaws. Rather than recognizing your strengths, celebrating your progress, or acknowledging your hard work, they consistently shift attention to your mistakes, imperfections, or past failures. It's not about holding you accountable. It's about keeping you small. These individuals often seem to take pleasure in pointing out what you could have done better. Their tone might sound casual, even helpful, but the pattern reveals their deeper motive to undercut your accomplishments by highlighting your shortcomings. They often magnify minor issues and present them as major concerns. For example, you could give a presentation that's well received by everyone, but they'll point out a single slide that had a typo or claim your delivery lacked polish. Their critique isn't constructive. It's designed to make you question your value and dampen the joy of your success. Over time, this behavior can create a toxic dynamic. You may find yourself seeking their approval, trying harder to be perfect, or second-guessing every decision. That's because their constant focus on your flaws slowly chips away at your confidence. They turn every conversation into a reminder of what you're not rather than what you are. What makes this especially harmful is that it often masquerades as honesty or just keeping it real. They may frame their comments as tough love or constructive criticism, but their words lack empathy, balance, or any genuine desire to see you improve. True feedback comes with context, kindness, and support. This kind of criticism, however, comes with coldness and detachment. You might also observe that their standards are never consistent. They forgive or overlook flaws in others, especially in people they admire or don't feel threatened by. But when it comes to you, every detail is dissected. This double standard is a clear sign that their scrutiny isn't about fairness or growth. It's about control and competition. Another indicator is their timing. They tend to bring up your flaws at moments meant to be celebratory, during your wins in front of others, or when you're feeling proud. It's a deliberate tactic to deflate your momentum and remind you that, in their eyes, you're not as great as others may think. People driven by envy struggle to see someone else receive admiration, especially if it reflects what they feel they lack. So rather than doing the inner work to improve themselves, they project their discomfort onto you by casting shadows over your light. The irony is that the more they focus on your flaws, the more they reveal their own insecurity, resentment, and inability to give honest, generous recognition where it's due. Their need to emphasize your imperfections says far more about their inner struggles than it does about your. A powerful yet often overlooked sign of envy and falsehood in others is their reluctance to acknowledge your growth. When someone truly cares about you and operates from a place of authenticity, they notice your progress, speak life into it, and celebrate how far you've come. But those who harbor envy struggle deeply with this. Your improvement challenges their self-image, disrupts their comfort, and perhaps most painfully, forces them to confront what they haven't done in their own life. You might notice this behavior when you make visible strides. Perhaps you've improved your financial situation, elevated your mindset, healed from past pain, developed a new skill, or gained clarity in your life's direction. Rather than offering you sincere recognition, the envious person becomes awkwardly quiet. They may change the subject, give short or vague responses, or shift attention to something unrelated. The silence isn't because they didn't notice, it's because they did and it unsettled. For someone who's envious, your growth represents a threat. Not a physical one, but an emotional disruption. Your rising reminds them, consciously or subconsciously, of the stagnation they feel within themselves. And rather than using your example as inspiration, they withdraw, deny, or minimize it. They might say things like, it's not that big of a deal, or let's see if it lasts, or worse, they'll ignore your evolution entirely, as if pretending it didn't happen makes it less real. Some people even respond by bringing up the past, subtly tying you to an outdated version of yourself. If you've matured, they'll recall the immature things you once did. If you become successful, they'll remind others of when you struggled. It's their way of keeping you small in their minds, anchoring you to a previous identity so they don't have to adjust their view of who you've become. They're not just resisting your growth, they're rejecting the idea that you can grow at all. At times, they'll also try to reframe your progress as circumstantial rather than intentional. She got lucky. He just happened to be in the right place at the right time. They avoid giving credit where it's due because acknowledging your transformation would mean accepting the truth that you worked for it, that you earned it. And if you earned your progress, then it challenges them to examine what they haven't done in their own lives. This reluctance can be even more painful when it comes from people you once leaned on for support. You may feel hurt, confused, or betrayed when those closest to you become the quietest during your biggest moments of personal growth. But it's not your responsibility to shrink just because someone else refuses to see your light. Their silence speaks volumes, volumes. Growth, transformative growth, has a way of exposing the hidden tensions in relationships. It's a mirror that reflects not only how far you've come, but also how others are choosing to respond. And when someone refuses to acknowledge your progress despite all evidence, it is often not about what you've done, but about what they haven't allowed themselves to become. That a subtle yet powerful sign of envy and falsehood in others is the constant need to compete for your attention. While it's natural for people to seek acknowledgement from others, those driven by envy go a step further. They not only seek validation, but do so in ways that disrupt your peace, demand unnecessary attention, and sometimes even overshadow your achievements in order to be noticed. These individuals often frame themselves as the center of attention in group settings, always inserting themselves into conversations, claiming your moments, or making sure that every success you share is followed by a comment or story that redirects the focus back to themselves. For instance, if you announce a personal victory, they might immediately follow with, "Oh, that's great, but let me tell you about what I did this weekend." Or, "I've been doing something similar for years now." Their motivation isn't to celebrate you, it's to center the conversation around them. In this subtle game, your victories are treated like stepping stones for their ego. This behavior is not just about speaking over you or changing the subject. It's about actively trying to reclaim the spotlight every time you share something personal or important. They may always have a bigger or better story to tell, and the competition becomes a never-ending race for attention and approval. They aren't content with your success. They need to be the one who is constantly seen as more impressive, more interesting, or more worthy of admiration. A hallmark of this kind of attention seeking is that it feels like a performance. The envious person may not engage with you out of genuine care or curiosity, but rather to make sure you notice their accomplishments, struggles, or opinions. It becomes a tug of war for emotional and social validation. But if you're the one who's been in the spotlight, they work hard to draw it back to themselves, and often they do so in ways that feel draining or exhausting. This is especially noticeable when you've done something significant that they cannot overshadow. You might achieve something notable, but instead of congratulating you, they might either downplay it or perform a dramatic show of their own accomplishments. For instance, they might announce a personal milestone in an exaggerated way, as though to say, "Well, you think that's impressive? Look at what I've been doing." It's a tactic meant to create the illusion that their accomplishments are just as important, if not more so. Even more telling is when they seek to dominate your time or emotional bandwidth. They might constantly ask for favors, complain about their issues, or position themselves as the one in need of support, leaving you feeling emotionally drained. In these moments, they might seem less like a friend and more like someone who's trying to fill the gaps of their own insecurity by leaning heavily on your attention and validation. They may also try to one-up you in smaller, more subtle ways, like suggesting that they've already mastered something you're working on, or making sure that others know how much more they've achieved. It's a constant cycle of a "look at me" rather than "I'm happy for you." What they fail to realize is that authentic relationships are not based on this kind of competition. True friends and supporters recognize that it's okay for one person to shine without threatening their own worth. But for someone driven by envy, this is a constant struggle. They feel the need to ensure their name is always mentioned, their contribution always acknowledged, and their place in the spotlight never in jeopardy. Ultimately, this behavior not only wears on you, but it often damages relationships over time. Genuine connection and mutual respect become impossible when one person is always vying for your attention. They may masquerade their actions as friendship, but at the core, they are competing for something that shouldn't be up for grabs: your admiration, your space, and your time. Recognizing envy and falsehood in others is not about creating paranoia or becoming cynical. It's about becoming more attuned to the dynamics around you and understanding the intentions of those you interact with. By recognizing these signs, you empower yourself to protect your energy, set healthy boundaries, and nurture relationships that are built on mutual respect and honesty. While we cannot control how others behave, we do have control over how we respond. Envy and falsehood may never disappear entirely, but with awareness and the courage to maintain your integrity, you can navigate these situations with grace and strength. Surround yourself with those who genuinely celebrate your success, encourage your growth, and uplift you when you need it most. In the end, it is authenticity and kindness that will always outweigh the shadows of envy. Choose to rise above the noise, stay true to yourself, and let your light shine regardless of the challenges others may present. As you continue on your journey, remember that your worth is not determined by those who compete, undermine, or try to dim your light, but by your own strength, resilience, and authenticity. Thank you.